Hello, and welcome to this session on planning ahead for bereavement. My name is Anne Horder. I'm a public health nurse working with Dudley Council. We know that death, dying and bereavement are not easy things to talk about, and you may be in a place where you feel vulnerable. So please take care of yourself. Be aware of your own breathing. Feel free to take a break, come back later, not at all, read a book or look at a nice picture if at any point you do feel sad. It's good and a sign of strength to look after yourself. What are we going to be talking about today? How to plan ahead for the end of life so those we leave behind know what we would have wanted. How to have the conversations that matter so that we can say what needs to be said. How to prepare for when we may be living alone so we can live as well as we can. Then we'll cover how to support a family member, a friend or a work colleague who has been bereaved to help them live life to the full, even though they are sad. So, how to plan ahead so those we leave behind know what we would have wanted. How do we want those we are leaving behind to enter their experience of bereavement? We might not be able to plan for every eventuality, but do we want those we love to be overwhelmed, tearing their hair out and struggling to cope? Or can each of us think of planning ahead so those we leave behind are sad, they will miss us enormously, but they can accept what's happened because we talked about it and we helped each other to learn the skills that each of us would need if either of us were to be living alone in the future. The choices we make can impact the physical and mental well-being of those we leave behind. Planning ahead can help us to feel more in control of what we do in the time we have left, knowing that our loved ones know what our wishes are, and very importantly, where key documents are kept. Planning ahead also gives us the option to make some changes in our lives and changes in our choices should we decide to do so. Planning ahead for the end of life. It's easier for those who are left behind if they know what our wishes are. We can help to avoid legal and financial disputes in the family after our death simply by planning ahead and making a will. Will forms are available at banks and at shops, always good to get them checked by a solicitor, and do make sure the key people in your life know where your will and other key documents are stored. As well as tangible assets, also perhaps think of what you would like your digital legacy to be. What about your social media accounts? And perhaps think of setting out details of any online bank accounts, including passwords, in case these may be needed. Thinking about organ donation. Did you know that you are now encouraged to record your decision of whether or not to donate on the NHS organ donor register? Do tell your family what you want. Currently, if you don't opt out or over 18 and not an excluded group, you are considered to have opted in, and even though your family can still refuse, in the event of your death, they may well be asked for permission. And then there's your funeral wishes. Thinking in more detail about the wishes for your funeral, using a leaflet like this one helps you to keep key information in a safe place, including details of the name of your next of kin and the name of the executor of your will. This one is available from Dying Matters and from the Digital Legacy Association. The space for the name of your preferred funeral director. That's a decision that needs to be made earlier. You need to have decided on a funeral director before you can register a death. And in England at the moment, you need to register the death within 5 days, and that's not 5 working days. If you're looking to choose a funeral director, do look for one that has signed the Fair Funerals Pledge, where pricing is transparent. Think about how you want your funeral to be paid for. If you are thinking of a prepaid funeral plan, it might be worth checking out the information on the Let's Get website that gives more information on the risks with funeral plans and how sadly at the moment there's some quite hard selling of funeral plans, believed to be because of the proposed financial regulation of funeral plans. It's expected to come into force at the end of July 2022. Think about what type of funeral you might like. You may already have a family tradition of burial or cremation, but where would you like any ashes to be scattered? There are many more options available now, and your funeral director can advise you in your planning. Would you like a green funeral? Would you like your funeral to follow a particular theme that reflects your special interest? Thinking about planning a funeral more broadly, each of us is likely to be very vulnerable in early grief, and in our desire to give our loved one a good send-off, we may unintentionally spend more than we can afford. So let's not ask those we're leaving behind for a funeral that will leave them struggling to pay for it. We know that financial hardship won't help the grief of those we are leaving behind. You might think of this planning ahead for a funeral as a last act of kindness. A key point with funerals is that a funeral is primarily intended to be a comfort to those who have been left behind. So in your planning, think what will help those you love to live as well as they can while they are grieving for you. You can plan it on your own, but you don't have to. You might ask someone you love. It's good if those you love and are leaving behind are not shocked by the contents of your proposed funeral. So do talk about it where you possibly can. We all hope that with good self-care and an active lifestyle that many of us will live in good health till a ripe old age. But for everyone, increasing age does bring increased risk of ill health, and many will develop a long-term condition or a life-limiting condition at some stage. Again, planning ahead can help to give us the type of care that we would like and ensure that our healthcare wishes are discussed and documented with those who may be caring for us. If you or someone you know has a long-term condition or a life-limiting condition, they can be of any age, you might suggest that they ask their GP or healthcare staff about going through the RESPECT process. Newly arrived in Dudley, RESPECT stands for Recommended Summary Plan for Emergency Care and Treatment, and appropriate for any patient that has any health problems at any stage. It's there in case we are ever in a position where we are unable to speak for ourselves. While it's not legally binding, it does give an opportunity for you to say, for example, I would accept all appropriate interventions to sustain my life, including cardiopulmonary resuscitation. RESPECT will replace the DNAR CPR forms as this is included in RESPECT. It's also good to complete an advanced care plan and ACP. Thinking about the care you may need in the future should you become unwell. Do talk with family, record your thoughts, discuss it with your healthcare professional and share this information with others, then review it regularly. As well as place of care options, advanced care planning includes nominating someone to speak on your behalf. Consider making a lasting power of attorney. There are two types, one for finance and another for health and welfare. Regarding end-of-life care, more people are now given the opportunity to die at home. Is this what you would choose? Are your family willing to care for you at end of life? And do they have the health and strength to do this? Then think about how you would like to be remembered. Would you want to leave messages for those you love? Perhaps create a memory box or a video for those you will leave behind. And if we act in all these areas, we will have planned well for the end of our lives. So we're then more likely to die in the place of our choosing with the people we love, and those we leave behind have the comfort of knowing that as far as was possible, they have done what they knew we would have wanted. As well as all this planning, do also think about planning your own personal bucket list, hopefully with some fun included. So moving on to how do we have the conversations that matter so that we can say what needs to be said. I'm not sure this is anyone's conversation of choice. We may be fearful to start the conversation, but to not have it increases fear in the dying and increases regret in those who are left behind. We might suggest you start small, sow the seeds for the conversation, choose the right place, the right time. Perhaps discussing retirement plans might provide a good opportunity, or perhaps the recent death of someone close has raised issues in both your minds about your own deaths. You might consider beginning with a question rather than a statement. Have you ever wondered what would happen? Or do you think we should talk about? Or you could start with something direct but reassuring like, I know that talking about these things is never easy, or We've never talked about this before, but now we need to. If you're starting the conversation in this way, you may need to reassure the other person that you're not raising the subject because you're very ill and have been withholding the information from them, or that you think they're very ill and haven't told them that either. It's good to be totally honest about how you feel from the start. If we're open, there may be either laughter or tears. Either is okay. Do listen to what the other person is saying rather than always taking the lead yourself. There's not necessarily a need to fill silences. It's good to leave room for the other person to bring up subjects that are important to them too. Or, if words aren't your best medium, perhaps start with a letter, and that gives time for a considered response. If words fail totally, you might give a gift with a message of love and an outline of your wishes. At the end of life, there might be opportunity for conversations of significance. If there is, these don't have to be heavy. Here's a quote from comedian Louisa O'Mealan on her experience of sitting with her mum in a hospice while her mum was dying. She said, "The hospice gave us love. It gave us time. We could talk, we could say goodbye, and we could process what was happening. It was such a privilege and a gift. And when people lose somebody without warning, and yet we had that chance, that was priceless." In those final weeks, Louisa recalls how the family asked her mum all of life's essential questions. "I was asking questions like, how do I make your lasagna? How will I know if I meet the right guy? What do I do with my life?" I asked her everything. So we've done how to plan ahead for end of life and how to have the conversations that can help us to plan. Now let's think about how to prepare for when we may be living alone, so that when we can live as well as we can. Do think about planning ahead. If you're still in a couple, perhaps you might try and help each other to learn both your skills for living. For example, can each of you pay the bills? Can you each cook a meal, work the washing machine, change a light bulb or a plug? Also, can each of us look after ourselves well with rest, sleep and exercise and nutritious food? Can we start practicing the 5 ways to well-being shown on the slide here? Let's connect, be active, take notice, keep learning and give. We know that those who do those things live longer, healthier and happier lives. Adopting the 5 ways to well-being now will mean that we are in a better place to continue to use them in bereavement. And using those 5 ways to well-being in bereavement will help us to live with our grief as well as we can. If you are grieving at the moment, we know that grief is exhausting, so do rest well, be kind to yourself, eat good food, accept any help that's offered, and try to incorporate those 5 ways into each day. It's good to stay connected to family and friends, to be active. Could you think of taking up a new activity, like perhaps walking together in a group? Could you learn a new skill, try a new recipe? Could you give your time, a smile to someone who's lonely? Can you manage your budget on a reduced income? Did you know that you can get a 25% reduction in council tax for sole occupancy? Have you checked out if you're eligible for any benefits via the CAB? How safe do you feel in your own home? Could you see about getting a free security check from your local council or local police service? Asking friends and neighbours for help can maybe a very first step in connecting with others too. So moving on to how we support those who grieve. How do we support a family member, a friend or a work colleague or a neighbour who's been bereaved to help them live life to the full even though they're sad? It's good always to acknowledge the loss, and very hurtful and rejecting if we ever ignore somebody, even though that might be because we just don't know what to say. You can't make somebody's pain worse by acknowledging the loss and create much hurt by not acknowledging it. People also worry about using the person's name, but do use their name. And if you don't know it, ask it and remember it. You can't cause more pain by saying the name. The bereaved person are thinking of the name of their loved one all the time anyway. Do listen well. If you realise you're feeling nervous, take a couple of deep breaths and wait until the other person's finished speaking before thinking of your reply. When people are grieving, their thinking processes can become a little slower. So what might feel like an age to you might simply be the reality of the way that their brain's working at that particular time. It's really good to lend a helping hand with everyday tasks. If you know family have been but are perhaps going away soon, could you call and check if they need shopping? Or if you had time, could you offer to take them with you for the first time to help them to go out again as the first time as a single person, if it was perhaps their spouse who died? So some few tips. There are more available on the Let's Get website. When people cry, we can feel uncomfortable with their tears and can want to say, there's no need to cry, don't cry, don't cry. But we actually know tears are healing. So here are some suggestions of what you might say instead of don't cry. It's okay to be sad. This is really hard for you. I'm here for you. Do tell me about it. I want to listen. It doesn't feel fair. You're dead right, it isn't fair. Grief is hard and exhausting, and sadly it will be each of us one day. So to be as helpful as possible, rather than just saying, let me know if you need any help, perhaps try a more specific offer of help that doesn't leave the bereaved person having to think what to ask you for. You might say, for example, I'm popping a casserole round for after the funeral. You can freeze it until you need it. Or, I'm mowing my front lawn this weekend. Can I run the mower over yours at the same time? Be kind. Remember, this will be each of us at some time. It's really good to stay in touch. We know that while every person's grief is unique and there's no set time for grief, grief can be a long haul. We no longer say someone will move on from grief. We now know that's not true. What happens is that gradually over time, the person who is bereaved grows a new life around their grief. That means that the grief they carry stays the same size, but becomes relatively smaller compared to the whole of their new life. Most people, that's 85% of people, will learn to live with their grief with the help of family and friends, and will in time be able to grow a new life around their grief. However, we know that about 15% of people will need more specialist help. If someone is neglecting their normal self-care, do suggest they get in touch with their GP. That might be a sign that they need more access to more specialist help. For those who do need that more specialist help, it's actually even more important that family, friends, good neighbours and colleagues stay connected, are kind and continue to offer acceptance and encouragement. Grief is not something that even the specialists can fix. They can give helpful tips, but they cannot fix grief. Most will get through grief with the help of family, friends, good neighbours and supportive colleagues. And this is a vital role in support for those who grieve. Let's Get Explore bereavement web pages have been described as fabulous by the psychologist that has reviewed them. On the Let's Get website, there are also leaflets on good self-care that are also available from GPs. Many of the bereavement support leaflets on the website signpost to helpful resources and organisations. It's also worth asking if you're employed, if your employer has access to additional support. There are many local groups. Places of Welcome are a great place to go. If you want to go out for a coffee after being bereaved and it's the first time you've been out, you'll be assured of a friendly welcome. You don't have to have been bereaved to go. And there are people there who will care for you and who will know what else is going on in the local area that might be of interest. We're very well provided for with a wide variety of bereavement hubs, some meeting in person, some are online, some for different ages. There's a men only one online at Compton Hospice, and there are a number of bereavement support groups that are very popular within the borough too. Details are on the website. If you have questions, please do email me on ann.horder@dudley.gov.uk. In the meantime, thank you for watching and go well.